My friend, have you ever found yourself in an argument where the other person shouts loudly, speaks quickly, and you feel overwhelmed even though deep down you know you are right? I have seen this happen many times, not only with young, hot-tempered people, but also with those in their 50s and 60s. And I must tell you honestly, the older we get, the more we realize that calmness is true power. I remember one of my patients, a man in his mid-50s, told me he often argued with a younger colleague. That young man always spoke loudly, always wanted to win. "Doctor," he asked me, "why do I always feel like I'm losing even when I'm not wrong?" I looked at him and said, "You are not losing. You just need to change the game." And that led us to a very important Stoic principle: you don't need to shout to prove you're right. Have you noticed how in our culture people often associate strength with volume? Whoever speaks louder is assumed to be more correct. Whoever acts more aggressively is thought to be stronger. But in reality, that's just an illusion. That's not respect, it's only temporary domination. I've witnessed dozens, even hundreds of situations like this, from company boardrooms to family dinner tables. And I can tell you with certainty, the one who can control their voice and emotions is the one who truly holds the power in the conversation. One of my favorite responses in those situations is, "I don't need to raise my voice to be right." I want you to imagine this. You're in a meeting. The other person starts banging on the table, raising their voice, even cutting you off. Instead of responding with anger, you breathe slowly, look at them, and say that line. Instantly, the atmosphere changes. You are no longer just part of a shouting match. You have become the leader. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "He who cannot control his tongue will be a slave to his emotions." When you keep your tone calm, you not only protect yourself from anger, but you also compel others to listen. And this, my friend, is not only effective in communication, it is also good for your health. I have explained to many patients that when we get angry and argue, the body produces a lot of cortisol, a stress hormone that raises blood pressure, causes insomnia, and weakens the immune system. But when we remain calm, the body produces endorphins and oxytocin chemicals that reduce pain, improve mood, and protect the heart. In other words, controlling your words is also caring for your health. Another phrase I often advise my students, patients, and YouTube viewers to use is, "The way you speak says more about you than it does about me." You see, when someone mocks, ridicules, or attacks you, the first impulse is to strike back. But the moment you do, you've stepped into their game. Instead, become a mirror. When you calmly say that line, you force them to look at themselves. And often in that moment, they realize their own rudeness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." I often read this to people who have suffered in family, marriage, or work. They nod because they know that not reacting doesn't mean weakness. It is the quiet strength of self-control. Let me ask you, have you ever walked away from an argument and told yourself, "I wish I had stayed silent"? If so, you already know that not every word needs to be spoken. Sometimes silence, or a simple but wise response, is the most powerful weapon. And this is where Stoic philosophy meets modern medicine. I have worked with many older patients with high blood pressure. Often the root cause was prolonged stress, small family conflicts, or trivial arguments. A 62-year-old man once confided, "I'm not afraid of heart disease, I'm afraid of fighting with my wife. Every time it happens, I feel like my chest is about to explode." I told him, "Maybe your heart isn't damaged by food, but by the words you haven't learned to let go of." That is why I always emphasize practicing Stoicism is not just a philosophy of life, but also a health exercise. Just as walking daily keeps your muscles strong, training yourself to restrain anger and respond with wisdom instead of impulse is how you strengthen your mental muscles. And those mental muscles will protect you in your most stressful moments. You see, the responses I've shared with you today, from "I don't need to raise my voice to be right" to "That's your opinion, I respect it, but I don't share it," are not tricks to defeat others. They are tools to protect you, to help you live longer, healthier, and with true respect. And I want you to remember, this true power is not in winning an argument. It lies in keeping your dignity even when others have lost theirs. So have you ever been in such a situation? Have you ever wished you could stay silent or say one sentence so profound it made the other person stop? If so, I encourage you to try these responses. Not just once, but again and again until they become second nature. Because when you do, you don't just change how others see you, you transform yourself from within. You know there are moments when an argument is no longer an exchange, but turns into a battle of words. The other person doesn't listen, they only want to win. They interrupt, they impose, and sometimes you feel like you are talking to a wall. In those situations, I often use a very simple but powerful phrase, "Let's talk when we can do it respectfully." It may sound gentle, but in reality, this phrase draws a clear boundary. It is not retreat, but a statement: I only participate in conversations that are worthy. I once advised a woman in her early 60s who was often yelled at by her eldest son during family arguments. She told me, "I feel small and worthless when he shouts in my face." I told her to try pausing, taking a deep breath and saying, "Son, I am willing to continue, but only when we can do it respectfully." The next time she tried it, the atmosphere changed. Her son went silent for a long moment, and she told me that in that instant, she no longer felt weak, but like the one who set the standard. The philosopher Epictetus once taught, "You cannot control others, but you can control what you accept." When you say this phrase, you are not running away, you are redefining what is acceptable in your life. And when you do this, often those around you will understand that you are not easily dragged into a toxic game. But there are times when even waiting for respect is useless. The other person does not stop, they keep attacking, they remain stubborn. And that's when you need the phrase, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." I still clearly remember a 58-year-old patient, a manager at a construction company. He often had to endure a rude superior who loved to scold employees. He told me, "Doctor, I am exhausted. Every meeting feels like I am being humiliated." I told him, "You have the right to end any conversation that brings no value. Next time, try saying, 'I'd prefer not to continue this conversation.'" And interestingly, when he applied it, his boss was stunned for a moment. Why? Because for the first time, someone dared to say no to toxicity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you will not feel harmed." Exactly. When you choose not to continue, you regain control. You are no longer a victim of someone else's anger, but the guardian of your energy, your peace, and your mental health. I always emphasize to my patients that knowing when to stop is also a form of healing. Now, there is a more delicate situation that I believe many of us at our age have experienced when close ones, friends or colleagues, people with no ill intent, try to impose their opinions on you. They believe they are right. They want you to follow, and sometimes they unintentionally cross your boundaries. In such cases, you don't want to argue, nor do you want to break the relationship. The phrase you need is, "That's your opinion and I respect it, but I don't share it." A 63-year-old woman once confided to me that her husband constantly pressured her to believe in the financial advice he read in the newspapers. She felt suffocated because she wanted to make her own decisions. When I taught her this phrase, she tried it. She told me, "I said to my husband, 'Honey, that's your opinion, I respect it, but I don't share it.'" To her surprise, he fell silent. And for the first time, he realized that his wife had the right to think independently. Seneca once said, "The worst kind of slavery is being a slave to the opinions of others." And I believe that when you learn to say this phrase, you are freeing yourself from the prison of emotional dependence. You don't need to win by proving them wrong. You win by affirming that you are an independent individual. And when others realize they cannot pressure you, they will begin to respect you more. You see, each of these responses is like a door. The first door opens to calmness. The second reflects the attitude of the other person. The third sets the standard of respect. The fourth closes off what is toxic. And the final door affirms your independence. But more importantly, those doors lead you to something deeper: health. Not only mental health, but also physical health. Because every time you choose calmness over anger, your heart is protected. Every time you choose silence over arguing, your blood pressure stabilizes. And every time you choose emotional freedom over dependence, you give yourself a longer and more meaningful life. English. My friend, we have just walked through 5 powerful responses together. I want you to take a moment to remember them not as rigid formulas, but as seeds you can plant in your daily life. Remember, you don't need to raise your voice to prove you are right. The way others speak says more about them than it does about you. You have the right to demand respect before continuing a conversation. You can choose to walk away to protect your peace. And finally, you can respect someone's opinion without sharing it. These phrases don't make you the winner of a temporary argument. They make you the leader of your own life. And when you practice them, you'll notice something remarkable. People start listening to you more, respecting you more, and you yourself begin to feel lighter and freer. I remember a man in his 60s once told me, "Doctor, after all these years, I realized the most precious thing is not wealth, but peace." And indeed, these responses are tools to help you hold on to that peace. You are no longer a pawn in someone else's game. You are the one holding the pieces. I want you to ask yourself in the coming week, which response will you apply first? Will you try keeping calm in a meeting? Will you set boundaries when someone speaks disrespectfully? Or will you learn to say, I respect it, but I don't share it? Choose one and start practicing. Just like walking every day keeps your heart strong, practicing these responses will make your soul stronger over time. And if you found what I shared today meaningful, I want you to do one simple thing: subscribe to this channel. Because I will continue to share with you Stoic lessons, real-life stories, and even medical insights I've gained from over 30 years of working with people your age. This is not just philosophy. This is a way of life, a medicine for the soul, so you can enter your 50s, 60s, even 70s with peace, wisdom, and strength. And I would love to hear from you. Share in the comments of these 5 responses, which one will you use first? I read every comment, and I believe your sharing will become a source of inspiration for others as well. You know, at this age, we don't need to prove to the world that we are strong by shouting. We prove it through calmness, clarity, and freedom in our soul. That is true power, Stoic power. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, strength is not in shouting, but in wise silence.